Hey friends, today I am really excited to do a pantry tour. I don't think I've ever done one of these videos. I love watching these videos when other people do them, and I really wanted to share what we do. And by the way, welcome to the channel. I'm Amanda. This is The Happy Homestead. What I think may resonate with you as you're watching this is that we live in suburbia. I am in central North Carolina, not far from Raleigh, North Carolina, and we are in a suburban neighborhood. And I don't have a basement. I don't have a root cellar. I don't have a larder, right? Like I don't have a walk-in cooler. I don't have these things that some of these other farmsteaders, homesteaders have, and I'm so happy they have them, right? Because there are people that live in homes that have basements and have root cellars, and it's just not something I have in our suburban home. So I want to show you how we store and how we stock our food and the food that we have, what's important to us. No time like the present, let's get in right to it. So we are here in our garage. Our door from the house is right over here. And so in our garage, we have a dedicated stand-up freezer, and then we have just like a regular standard kind of fridge, top freezer, bottom fridge. This is all we have in our garage. We do have more in the house, but I wanted to show you here first. And so in this freezer, we just filled the freezer because it was empty. I picked up an entire processed pig from one of my favorite local farmers about 2 weeks ago. And then about a week ago, or maybe a week and a half ago, since then, I also picked up half of a cow that we had processed from another one of our favorite local farmers. And so this freezer right here, brace yourself. It is all pork and beef. Really from this part up is pork, and even on this door here we've got some ground pork and bacon and pork chops, and then really from this part down is all beef, and then on the door down here I actually have some frozen, I think this is cream, and I have milk, and there's beef bones on the bottom to make more beef stock. This is some tallow that we've gotten. So whenever we are getting an animal processed, and again, we're not raising our animals because we're in suburbia, but whenever we get an animal processed, we're always getting the bones. And for instance, for the pork, we get the leaf fat to make our lard. And then for the cow, we absolutely get the beef bones and the tallow. And so with all of the meat in this freezer, this really is a majority of our beef. There's more beef in the house, and all of our pork. This will last us 18 months, no problem, a year and a half. We have purchased a whole pig and half of a cow in the past, and that was over a year and a half ago. So that is how I know how often we go through it. Now we're a family of 4. 2 adults, 2 children. Children's are 7 and 9, so not quite in the teenager years yet. But with a family of 4, cooking 2-ish meals a day with breakfast and dinner and leftovers for lunch, this is going to last a year and a half, and we're very excited to do this. So even if you are not able to raise your own meat, and certainly not everybody is, you can absolutely find a local farmer, and the best part about that is you're paying per pound, no matter the cut of meat. And so it's pastured pork, it's 100% grass-fed beef, and it is wonderful. So in this refrigerator freezer here, up here we have just kind of a mishmash of things. We've got some frozen soups in the door. We've got butter. I actually have some lobster that I had found on sale at one of the stores. We've got broccoli, and then these things here, these are actually cuts of venison that my husband had got when he had gone hunting, and it just didn't totally get processed yet. So we've got different things of venison in there, as well as the butter, lobster, broccoli. Down here, you may have seen when I got my last Azure order how I store, excuse me, how I store a lot of our potatoes and such and fermented foods. And so down in here is really all of our fermented salsas, sauerkrauts, pickles. I've got carrots, parsnips, as well as about 150 pounds of potatoes back here in the shelves. And then there's adult beverages for whenever we need them. But for the most part, this fridge is the ferments as well as some root vegetables. We're back in the house. We're in our kitchen. This is just our standard refrigerator here, but there's a couple of things I want to share and show you in here. I hope it's clean. Okay, up here, it may be hard to see, but this is all cheese. So if you've been watching the channel, you may know that I make a lot of our cheese. And so this is a cheddar. We have Swiss, a dill Havarti. This is a Tom, which is like a Swiss kind of cheese. And so there is probably, each one of these wheels is 4 pounds. So 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 24 pounds of cheese in here that I keep stored in these bags. And so whenever we need to open them, I easily have our cheese readily available. And then we have just our regular whatnot of everything here in the refrigerator. In our freezer here in the kitchen, I have a lot of our frozen fruits, handful of like leftovers that we may freeze, and nuts. I keep all of our nuts down in our freezer down here, as well as any pre-made like pizza crusts, pie crusts, things like that I can easily just grab. This is our main kitchen pantry. This is the pantry that was built with the house for the kitchen. Down here, it's only like half of a pantry because down here on the other side of this wall is our air return for our HVAC. And so we have a lot of wasted space. We've got about half of the door here size-wise. And so in here, I have all of our grains that we kind of go through daily, weekly, whether it be the oatmeal, the wheat berries, the spelt, all that kind of stuff when we're just making our own bread, which we do on a weekly basis. And then I've got all of our fermented garlic honey, as well as a couple of canned goods. I have all of our canned goods elsewhere, which I'm going to show you, but I have a few things in here because the purpose is that they need to be used first. I have all of our dried beans. This pantry is kind of what we pull from regularly, multiple times a day, and this is where we try to keep everything stocked up. It is going to be hard to see, so I'm just going to have to explain, and you have to trust me here. But this is a closet underneath our stairs to go upstairs in our house, and this top shelf right here is all pasta. A few things like from the store as far as like boxes of pasta, but most of it is Azure. We buy all of our pasta in bulk, and so it's in these bags. And the top shelf here is all of the pasta that we would need. And we don't eat that much pasta, and I really love to hand make pasta with some semolina flour. And so we have on hand like different extruded shapes that I can't do, but spaghetti or fettuccine, linguine, those types of things, or even lasagna noodles, we don't normally have on hand because I can easily make that, and it's just really fun for me to do. The second shelf is mostly empty canning jars. We do have a couple of cereal. The only cereal I buy are the Heritage Flakes and the Heritage O's. This is Nature's Path. I buy them in bulk from Azure Standard. We're not a big cereal family, but I like having it just in case. And then the bottom two shelves are more jars, dog treats for our puppy Marley here, as well as fermenting items and some maple syrup. But a lot of these 5-gallon buckets, I have quite a few of these 5-gallon buckets in here. This is the back stock for all the wheat berries, the sugar, the oats, the rice, the beans, the things that I buy in bulk from Azure Standard. About every 2 to 3 months, or as needed, I will go in the closet to the pantry that I just showed you, which is across from me now, and refill a lot of those jars, right? Anything that's in that pantry that's getting low, I then come here to the back stock, and that's where I kind of keep everything filled. So I'm not buying these smaller quantities. I'm buying large quantities, getting that price break, and always having our back stock as our grocery store. I wanted to actually pause here. This is part of the entryway into our home. And if you haven't yet determined or figured out a way to use your produce as decor in your home, I highly advise it, because I love when we come in. It just looks so pretty. These are just rosemary cuttings from our rosemary bush, as well as we have a bay tree. These are bay leaves. And I had one Gerber daisy that is still alive, so I took that. And so I love having just kind of like this area, right? This is all food we will eat. This is all food we have grown in our garden, but I love the fact that I can help display this, save some room elsewhere, and be able to see it and how pretty it is. We are now in what I call the grocery store, or the market, the general market. This is a formal dining room in our suburban home. We had a formal dining room set in here for many years. We've been in the home for I think 12 years. And prior to the pandemic, I had the realization that, you know, the table and the table set and the chairs were worth more money outside of this home and using this space differently for us. And so we sold our table and chairs and converted this entire space into something a lot more useful for the entire family, and that is our general market, or our general store. And so I'm going to show you just a couple of different spots, right, and take you around the room with what we have in here. This is probably the only part of the room that was still, or is still existing from when it was our existing dining room. We have this beautiful kind of hutch down here, and I still have dishes in there and certain things that I have decided to keep. But this piece has also become very useful because I have a lot of my ferments up here. So this is our homebrewed kombucha. And these are empty right now, but that is going to be for our mead when I get a next batch of mead going, which is like a honey wine, a fermented honey wine. I also love this spot because I'm able to display my transferware. I bought this beautiful plate rack. I think it was from Seeking Lavender Lane on Instagram. I think I bought it from her, and I love it. So I've put it on top of our piece here, able to display our transferware, which we use on a lot of the holidays, special occasions, birthdays, and it just kind of makes this room a little bit more appealing other than it just being a pantry. Earlier this year, I went to an antique kind of vintage show, and I purchased this. I love it. So I store a lot of our squash or root vegetables in here. So this is all butternut squash. I did not grow this butternut. This is from Azure Standard. I've got a little baby squash that I did grow. Here's an acorn squash. So everything up here I grew, but this is our butternut. And this is all sweet potatoes from Azure Standard. I had a very large order. And I have a lot more sweet potatoes coming, but I like to make sure that everything is kind of getting its airflow, it's housed properly, right? So the doors have these kind of wire mesh area on top, so it allows for airflow. I don't have anything in the bottom. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but that is because that is where I hide my children's school laptops. During the weekend, it's a no computer zone. I don't want my kids on the computer more than they have to be. So they have them for school. They're required to bring them home. And that is where mama hides them without them ever knowing. So one of the things that we purchased, it was probably right when the pandemic began, was a chest freezer. We were so lucky to have gotten it for such a great price. I think it was like the floor model, and so we didn't have to wait for any kind of shipping and for it to get here. And this has been a lifesaver. I love this freezer. So in this freezer, I'll open it in a minute, but in this freezer is more of the beef cuts from our half a cow that we got a couple of weeks ago, as well as chickens. So from, again, one of my favorite local farmers, we buy our eggs and chicken. It happens to be the same farmer that did the pork this year. And so I got, I think it was 20 chickens from her. I joined her chicken shares. And so I buy whole chickens because I'm able to piece them out as needed. I'm able to get many meals from one chicken. And every time we cook a chicken, I get all of the bones and the scraps and everything in the Instant Pot, and I make a bone broth overnight. I have a video on that. I will link that above so you can watch it. The easiest thing in the world to make your own homemade bone broth. And so our chickens are in here. I also occasionally buy chicken thighs and chicken breasts from Azure Standard. They're in there as well as a couple more bags, gallon bags of frozen fruit. So blackberries, blueberries from our backyard, strawberries that we pick from a local farm, peaches if I have any left over from the peach truck when I do an order from the peach truck, as well as just kind of random odds and ends. I've got some butter in here from Azure Standard. I've got hot dogs, sausages, those types of things. So first and foremost, you'll see this. This is hot sauce puree that I put in here because I'm going to freeze dry that. So I pre-freeze a lot of my freeze-dried items, but this is butter. These are leeks. I have a lot of these vacuum sealed bags. We have strawberries, homegrown sliced peppers. I've got tortillas. All of this is homegrown. We've got eggplant, breaded eggplant. There's more peppers down there. There's corn. There's like zucchini bread. There's just all kinds of odds and ends in this freezer, but I do have a list on my phone which helps me know what I have and what needs to be used first. So we've gotten through our pork, our beef, our chicken. We do buy salmon from a local fisherman. She actually lives half of the year in Alaska, half of the year in North Carolina. And so we've got a really great relationship with her where we get some of her salmon that she fishes every year. That's actually coming in a month. So I don't have too much fish left, but our main protein, animal protein, is just beef, pork, chicken, and salmon. And then obviously we do eggs from our local farmer, but that is our main animal sources of protein. I've showed you our grains, our beans, we've got our frozen fruit. Let's go over to the preserved section of the general store. So next to the freezer is our shelving unit or units with a lot of our preserved items. Most of this is homegrown, not all of it, but let's just start on the top row here and go through. I tried to organize it in a way to have kind of like a grocery store, right? The eye level things, the things that's easily reachable, are the things I grab for the most. So starting over here, this is soups. This is, I think, a sausage bean soup. We've got vegetable soup, a chicken corn chowder, and that's kind of our soups right here. So a lot of these can be made into meals of their own or as an accompaniment to something else. This is turkey stock. So we've got one small pint of turkey stock with some turkey meat in here. And that's really what the rest of this is. This is all stock. So you remember I said that, we just got our beef. I had to clean out the freezer to make room for this new beef and get all of our beef bones processed. I'm so glad I did. I'm happy to go into winter knowing I have all of this bone broth on the shelf ready for use. So this row right here, all the way back, is turkey. This is pints of beef broth. These 2 rows of quarts are all beef broth. And then these pints are all chicken broth, and then these quarts are all chicken. This row is actually freeze-dried items. This is freeze-dried cucumber. I have 3 pints of this homegrown cucumber, as well as 1 quart that is cucumber slices, where I'm envisioning that I will use the slices to make like a cucumber salad with some garlic, maybe some minced ginger, red onion, rice wine vinegar to make like a side salad. That's one of our favorite things to do with fresh cucumber. So I freeze dried some slices to try that later on this winter. But these pints of diced cucumber, I'm actually gonna open some of this tonight to make like a quick tzatziki. We're having some salmon tonight. So I'm really excited to have some of these freeze-dried things on hand to use in different ways. Okay, second row here from left to right. This is all sauce, different types of sauce, where this is just tomato sauce, no herbs. And this is a marinara, a slow cooked thick marinara. More tomato sauce. So the sauce can be used as, you know, any type of tomato sauce, but I also have it just a little bit more liquidy, so I can use this as tomato soup too. We've got about 10 quarts of sauce and marinara, and then we have some pints as well. This is actually tomato juice or tomato water. So whenever we are processing our tomatoes, I always save the kind of the clear liquid. There's a little kind of pulpish down here, but this is a lot of just the tomato water. And this is really good as a base for chili. I will certainly add a sauce, but I love to use this to make chili or some type of soups where instead of water, I'm adding this for just a little extra flavor and nutrition. So I have 4 quarts of that. This is something new to me this year. This is unstuffed cabbage soup. So it's basically ground beef, some onions, peppers, tomato sauce. I canned this back in August. And there's quite a few of this, I think 5 or 6 quarts. One of my favorite things to make in the winter is a stuffed cabbage casserole or an unstuffed cabbage casserole. We have cabbage growing in our garden, so once one is ready, I can chop it up, saute it, put it in a casserole 9x13 dish, along with 1 or 2 quarts of our unstuffed cabbage, and it has like this really great casserole flavor without having to go through the workload of actually stuffing the cabbage leaves. This is Steak Diane. This is relatively new. I did this in August as well. This was for the Every Bit Counts challenge. It's basically like a soup, or you could heat this up and put it over mashed potatoes, but there are a couple of quarts of that. I have only 3 left of baked beans. I definitely need to make more of these. I love having these on hand. And then the rest of this row is actually all purchased from Azure Standard. So we've got larger cans of crushed tomatoes, we have tomato paste, we have pizza sauce, and then we have plain old tomato sauce. I like having these as well because sometimes I just can't grow enough tomatoes to accommodate all of the products I may need. And case in point would be tomato paste. For the cost, especially with organic tomato paste from Azure, which I trust them, I trust the quality. For the cost of this, it is so much more worth my time and our garden growing effort to can our tomatoes in different varieties and not make a paste. So there are some things I definitely do buy because it's just nice to make sure I have that on hand. Coming to the third row here, this over here left to right, we've got a lot of pickles. We have dill spears, we have dill slices, we have pickled hot peppers, sweet heat pickles, a lot of different types of pickles back here, as well as looks like some more dill slices here. Our cucumbers were very productive this year. We had probably one of our best cucumber years yet. So a lot of pickles on hand. These are 2 rows of pickled beets. I only have 1 of the yellow beets left. The rest are the red beets, but we love pickled beets. And there's not a ton of vinegar in the pickled beets. I really like to do it with just a tad bit of vinegar to make it safe for canning, but they are really great in salads or as a side dish. This is all salsa, these 4 rows here. We have peach salsa, which is one of our absolute favorites, salsa verde, which I am proud to say that I received first place in the North Carolina State Fair for our salsa verde this year in 2023. And then we have regular kind of just regular red tomato salsa. And then the last 3, this is cowboy candy, which is like a pickled candy jalapenos, relish, and then a squash relish. We actually don't use a whole lot of relish, and so this is All of our relish right now is from July of 22, but still is great, still available for us when we need. It's just not something I make that often anymore. Last row on this shelving unit here, this is all fruits, jams, and jellies. So I've got 2 quarts of apple pie filling right here. We've got Drunken Peaches, just 1 quart of that. And I actually have some bone broth behind there because I didn't have any room up top. This is strawberry lemonade concentrate. We've got applesauce, apple butter, peach butter, and then different types of jams. This is, I've got 2 of my favorite here. This is a fig shallot jam. I made this actually 2 years ago, but this is a really good pizza base along with a fig red wine jam. Every now and then you just want a little bit different type of pizza. So I love using the fig shallot and the fig red wine jam as the pizza base instead of a tomato sauce, and then adding some fresh greens, maybe some caramelized onions, some goat cheese, something just a little bit different, what I like to call the adult pizza. And so I love having those on hand for those types of things. This is raspberry jam. This is new to us this year. With the raspberries that I purchased actually from Azure Standard, some frozen raspberries. And the raspberry jam is quickly becoming one of our favorites. We've got peach and then a lot of spicy peach jelly. This is going to be really great for the holidays coming up, to use in a variety of different ways. Strawberry jam, hot pepper jelly, cranberry mustard, and then a pear garlic preserve. I love having the cranberry mustard on the table. It's just a great alternative to any type of gravy or anything else that maybe people aren't really digging on their Thanksgiving dinner. The hot pepper jelly, just like the spicy peach jelly, fantastic with brie and cheeses, and just like as a really good accompaniment on a charcuterie board. While also the pear garlic preserves, that's pretty new to us. I just canned that this month. Really good with charcuterie too. So while I'm here on the floor, behind me I have more of the 5-gallon buckets. So in the pantry closet that I showed you under our stairs, that's where a lot of the wheat berries, the dried goods, these are actually different types of dry goods. So I've got, well, this bucket right here is actually our dishwasher powder. I buy our dishwasher powder as well as our laundry powder in really big buckets, and it lasts about a year, if not a little more. So it's been a fantastic investment to not have to go buy laundry detergent in the smaller quantities at a much higher price point. I have spelt berries right here. This is a coarse Redmond real salt, and then next to it is the fine Redmond real salt. Redmond real salt, and there's a link down below where you can get a discount, 15% off, is our favorite salt of choice. It is the only salt we have in our house and that we use in our kitchen. No iodized. And while sea salt is fantastic, I love that Redmond real salt is mined right here in the United States. And so I buy 25-pound bags. It lasts about an entire year, and that's for not just cooking and canning, but also curing and doing cured meats in that way too when we make our own bacon. And so we've got the coarse salt, the fine salt, 25-pound bags of each. Oh, and sugar. I've got a 25-pound bag of sugar here also. So on the floor underneath this shelving unit, I've got some gorgeous onions. These onions were from Azure Standard. I just store them here on the floor in the pantry. The floor is pretty cool. We don't have a basement, but we do have a crawl space. And so the floor does stay pretty cool, especially in the winter. But we've got our canner, and then I've got my steam canner, and I've got a waffle maker behind here. I've just got some of the appliances that I do need to be able to get, but they're still out of the way, easy within reach, but out of the way. So let's work our way over to this other shelving unit. We'll start here on the floor and work our way up this time. I've got my basket of garlic. If you have been catching any of the videos lately, I used all of our homegrown garlic to make fermented garlic honey. That is from Azure Standard. I think I bought about 10 pounds or 15 pounds of garlic, and it stores, again, very well in here. I know that the lights are on, right? But normally this room is very dark and we do keep it a little bit colder down on the first floor comparatively to the rest of the house, as well as the blinds, right? There are windows here. It was a dining room, but the blinds are constantly closed and it stays fairly dark in here. So the garlic's there. And then I have my big cheese making pot. This is my, I think it's 6 or 7 gallon cheese making pot when I'm making cheeses, as well as extra lids and then some smaller jars. These 2 rows are all canned green beans. I've got wax beans and then I've got the green beans. All of the green beans have been homegrown this year, where the wax beans were actually from a farm last year. So we're gonna work through the wax beans first, and then we'll go to our homegrown green beans. But I think I have about 42, 43 quarts, which is amazing. Next shelf up, I have a case of 6 of this cider and spice. It's like an apple juice, apple cider type of thing. I'm going to be using this to help make my next batch of mead, and that was why I purchased it. And I also have a case of this lemon juice. Having organic, pure lemon juice on hand when sometimes I just don't have lemons has been a lifesaver for me, for not just canning, but cooking in general. This is actually more marinara. I ran out of room on the other shelving unit, and so I have, I think, 6 quarts of marinara here, as well as some more of that tomato water. Next shelf up, we've got some empty jars. This shelving unit originally was intended for empty jars, but I quickly realized that our general market, our general store, has just kept growing. And I'm so grateful for that, because our harvest just kept coming in. So I've had to kind of reorganize a little bit with some of the empty jars on the floor behind the camera here, and making sure I have more space for where I need to store things. But we've got some more freeze-dried items. This is freeze-dried celery. I've got 2 quarts of that. And I plan to use this for like casseroles, soups, and stews. Again, I try not to go to the store unnecessarily. And so if I can already have some diced celery ready to throw in that hydrates so fast and so easy, this is a win to do so. I'm pretty excited about these. I'm sure some of you know exactly what this is, but I have 3 gallons worth of limed eggs, water glassing of eggs. And I have wrote on it, right, when I did it and how many eggs are in there. But I have approximately 100 water glassed eggs. I am hoping that can get us through 2 to 3 months, maybe. I know that my farmers' chickens will slow down. They will slow down in the winter, right? They'll start to molt and the egg production goes down a little bit. So these are here to help bridge that gap until the chickens start to pick up again. This is the oldest, so I put these in order of like oldest to newest. So this was from May, this was from June, and the one in the back was from July. So we'll definitely pull from these first. But water glassing eggs is an age-old technique where you're actually placing clean, unwashed eggs in a lime water solution. The lime actually helps preserve the shell and keep it intact, so you can actually crack it and cook it like you would a regular egg. But the key is to make sure you have unwashed, fresh eggs. You cannot go do this from store-bought eggs. But this is something that I'm really excited to have for this year. The top shelf of this unit is all of our vinegars. Again, I buy all our vinegars from Azure Standard, and I buy them by the gallon. Having these on hand, I've had these for almost a year now, and as you know, vinegar doesn't go bad. So I've already worked through a majority of them. This is apple cider vinegar. That's actually my 3rd one for the year. But we go through vinegar because we make a lot of our salad dressings. We might marinate some chicken or some steaks, right? So we're always doing some sort of homemade flavoring, and vinegar is a huge part of that. And so having these at our disposal has been really helpful. I've got balsamic, red wine, white wine, rice wine vinegar for like that cucumber salad and Asian dishes. and then apple cider vinegar. And then behind the apple cider vinegar, I actually have some olive oil as well. I buy olive oil by the gallon, not so much for cooking, but for soap making. So that olive oil is going to get put to good use very soon to make more soap. We're back over to the bigger shelving unit, but I wanted to show you the very top shelf. I have 2 bins here. I just recently did this when I was going through the great purge here of the dining room, the pantry, and really kind of cleaning and organizing. And so these are all freeze-dried items. That bag actually says chopped shallots. This is elderberries. This is all homegrown foods that I've been able to freeze dry and preserve with our Harvest Right freeze dryer, which is behind the camera, and I'll show you that in just a sec. So having this has been really a game changer for us. I love knowing that I have some of these freeze-dried items. Now, I have a couple of meals. I think I did some leftover chili one day, right? And that's the beauty of it. So if you have something that you've made for dinner, but it's not something you can safely can, right? Because there are some strict canning rules if you choose to follow them. Freeze drying, just like freezing, is an excellent way to preserve that meal to be used later on. So a lot of the stuff in here is I have actually eggs, freeze-dried eggs, which I use all the time for cooking, mainly for baking. I've got onions, potatoes, celery, pumpkin, those types of things. And so I will be pulling from those as needed this winter just to make sure I use what we have and not have to go buy anything. Last but not least up here is our ketchup. We really love this Portland ketchup, and so I buy this by the case from Azure Standard as well. I found this cute little caddy at an antique store, and that's what I use to house our ketchup. And again, our tomatoes are pretty valuable, and to be able to convert that to ketchup, I feel like I would just need to triple my tomato production, and I don't have that ability right now. So being able to choose which tomato products I buy versus make and can is something that you really want to think about with your garden, with your usage, and your time. This is the Harvest Right freeze dryer. We put it here in the pantry. This was the best place we could come up with. That is our front door behind me. And so certainly when guests come into our house, this is one of the first rooms they see. And the reaction usually follows in one of 3 camps. 1, like, ooh, what is all that, right? In interest. 2 would be total just kind of ignore it because they don't know what to say. And 3 would be like, whoa, what you got going on over there? A little judgment. So we usually have people fall into one of those 3 camps, but this is how we choose to use this space. And it was the best place for the freeze dryer. We didn't want to put it in the garage because of the heat fluctuations during the temperatures, especially in the summer when it can get very hot here in North Carolina. But I have been finding, I've had this for about 6 months now, and I have been finding that I am using it more and more and more, and I love it. One of my goals for this year and carrying into the new year is really to grow a lot of our own herbs and being able to preserve them rather than going and buying dried herbs from the store or even from Azure. Being able to grow and preserve our own has been really awesome, and it's one of my favorite things to do with the freeze dryer. So that really encompasses, you know, all of our freezers, kind of where we're storing our meats, our dairy, our fruits, the frozen items, right? And then the canned items, the dry goods, the produce that we've grown ourselves. Last but not least, and you don't always see this in other pantry tours, I want to show you our little apothecary. So we are in my home office, which is like right across from the dining room, the general store. And this is just a shelving unit I've had, and I have been incorporating into creating our own little apothecary here. And I love this. I love when I'm working in my office, I can just look around and see this, because this brings me so much joy just to see in the jars, but also a huge sense of accomplishment and also confidence in how to treat my family and myself with certain things. I have elderberries. I've got all homegrown elderberries ever since we've gotten our own elderberry tree. I've got some of these freeze-dried herbs. This, I believe, is basil, and then I vacuum seal the lid on top. I'll link down below the vacuum sealer I have to use for the jars. But a lot of the items here are homegrown. The stuff that's not homegrown, I have purchased either from Azure or directly from Mountain Rose Herbs, which is another company that I fully trust within the medicinal realm. So we've got burdock root, I have slippery elm bark, marshmallow root, plantain leaf. This is actually calendula flowers that I've grown, and I use the calendula to make our own homemade lotion. This is freeze-dried echinacea flowers, which I will use to make some sort of tincture. And how pretty are these? These are marigolds that I freeze-dried, and I plan on using these to help make some soap. I also have a lot of my herbal remedy books in here too. I have been diving into herbalism for, I think this is going on my 3rd year, and have learned so much. I make so much of our family's own things, and you totally can too. But being able to kind of grow and preserve some of those things, something that everyone can strive for if they desire. That concludes the tour of a suburban home, which I'm hoping a lot of you can relate to. Even if you're in a big city in an apartment, do not ever discount what you can do. It always starts at home. You do not need land. I was just talking about this with some friends. It is not even possible for everyone on this earth to have an acre, 5 acres, pick your number. It's not possible. There's not enough land in the world to accommodate that. So there has to be people that choose to live in a city and do urban gardening or a community garden. There have to be people that do the suburban lifestyle and grow in their backyard or on their front porch. And then there's always going to be the farmers. So embrace where you are. Don't feel like you can't start where you are, because it all starts at home. I hope this was useful, interesting, and maybe gave you some ideas on how to do some things for the new year for you and your family. Thank you for joining. If you're not already subscribed, please do so. I've got so many exciting things planned for 2024. Stay healthy, stay well. I will see you next time.